Humanity has crossed continents and entered space, yet enormous parts of our own planet remain unseen, unvisited, and profoundly mysterious.
A place may be mapped remotely, yet never physically entered, while another may remain completely hidden from both humans and machines.
It is almost impossible to prove that nobody has touched every point on land, so our strongest examples lie beneath natural barriers. The ocean covers most of Earth, but its enormous depth, pressure, and darkness make it our planet's greatest unexplored frontier. Sonar can reveal the shape of the seabed from kilometers away, but mapping a location does not mean humans have visited it. Even today, most of the global seafloor has not been mapped using modern high-resolution technology, leaving vast gaps in human knowledge.
Abyssal plains stretch across immense areas between 3 and 6 kilometers deep, and countless sections have never been directly observed.
Below roughly 1,000 meters, sunlight disappears completely, creating a cold, dark world powered by falling particles and chemical energy.
Thousands of underwater mountains rise from the seabed, and some have been detected only through remote measurements rather than direct observation.
Submarine canyons cut enormous valleys into continental margins, with complex branches that may never have been entered by any exploration vehicle.
Beyond 6,000 meters lies the Hadal Zone, a network of trenches and depressions named after the ancient underworld. At the deepest trenches, pressure exceeds 1,000 times that at sea level, crushing ordinary equipment and preventing normal human access. Trenches contain walls, ridges, and isolated basins, so one visit leaves countless neighboring environments unexplored. A few expeditions have reached the Mariana Trench's deepest areas, but most of its enormous walls and surrounding terrain remain unvisited.
Reaching a famous depth record does not explore an entire trench. It illuminates only a minute path across a vast landscape.
Other Pacific trenches receive far fewer expeditions, leaving extensive slopes, basins, and habitats unseen by human eyes or cameras.
Fractures and cavities may extend beneath trench walls, forming environments too narrow, unstable, or remote for existing exploration vehicles. Untouched seabed may contain organisms unknown to science, including microscopic species adapted to cold,